कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुः मा ते सङ्गोत्स्वकर्मणि।
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Good afternoon and Jai Shri Krishna. My name is Kalra, and I'm here to introduce our next speaker. Deshpande, we have known him for about 20 years. He's truly living Gita. You see it when you work with him or you listen about him. He's truly what I would, if I may say, a practitioner of integral yoga. True balance in the life. He's raised a beautiful family. He has an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, if I may say that. Created a lot of wealth. He also worked with a lot of young and aspiring entrepreneurs through the auspices of Thai, helped create also a lot of wealth. He has given generously his time to youngsters as well as his time to Thai. As a first chairperson of Thai Boston and then served on Thai Global as a trustee for many years. It doesn't stop, that's the beginning. He has generously donated funds to good cause. MIT Deshpande Center of Innovation. He is life member. Akshapatra has contributed both financially as well as his guidance. And his guidance has been sought by presidents of the United States. For example, he was on the Innovation Council of President Obama. He has worked with Clinton on world hunger, UNO. He has been to some missions, for example, Haiti, and more recently to India and your mission. It's indeed a pleasure and honor to have Deshpande share his wisdom with us.
Okay. Well, most respected Puja Swamijis and Swaminis, the always happy Satya, and friends. You know, this morning I was so impressed the way you all sat here very quietly in a very contemplative, meditative mood, listening to very profound words of all the Gurujis. That was the heavy dose of Gita. What you're going to get now is all tiny little booster doses. You know, because I am not a Gita expert. But what I thought I would do is to just share with you some of the observations. You know, for the last, you know, my background is I grew up in India. 73 is when I graduated, left India, did masters, taught for a while, PhD, worked in Toronto for 4 years. I and my wife Jayashree, we've been living in Boston now since '84, did a bunch of companies, but the last 15 years we've been working quite a bit with impoverished communities. working at the people who are not doing that well. And so if you really look at what is the difference between vibrant communities and impoverished communities, it really comes down to mix of the people who live in these communities. There are three types of people in this world. There are some people who are oblivious to everything. They don't really notice anything. There are people who notice everything, who notice every problem that exists in the world, but choose to just complain about it. And then there are people who see a problem, get all excited, see it as an opportunity, and want to do something about it. And obviously these are the karma yogis, the people who see a problem and want to do something with it. And the difference between a vibrant community and an impoverished community is just a mix of these two types of people. Do you have people who just sit around and complain, or do you have people who take charge and do something with it? And the communities where people just sit around and complain, it's not because they like complaining, it's just that the problems have become so entrenched that they've reached a pretty deadly steady state. And there isn't a very easy way to unlock the situation. And so you really need the karma yogis to sort of latch on to one of these problems and they get feverish about it and finally find a way to actually tackle the problem. And of course, places like Silicon Valley, it's a vibrant community and there's full of these yogis. But karma yogis can be very skilled, karma yogis can be very successful, and there can be karma yogis who are very enlightened. And so, what is the difference between all these people, right? So, I think first of all, the characteristics of the karma yogis who I see are enlightened are the people whose efforts, whose karma is driven by a broader mission. It's a mission a lot bigger than themselves. I'm sure you see a lot of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs who all want to be entrepreneurs because somebody else has been an entrepreneur, somebody just got rich, and they're all struggling to find a problem. They find a problem, but the problem usually is a problem of solving a rich person's problem, and rich people usually don't have those many problems. But you latch onto a problem and then you spend a lot of marketing dollars and positioning and marketing, everything else, trying to convince the other person that he actually has a problem, right? But it's not really driven by the internal spirit, right? So dharma is about choosing a mission that's a lot bigger than yourself. To live a happy world, we need an environment, a nature, which is in harmony with everything else. We need justice for everybody. And we cannot afford to have abject poverty. We cannot have to have people who starve and can't look after the basic things. And so when you pick and choose problems related to something bigger than yourself to solve these things, that dharma, that mission itself, gives a very different level of strength and enlightenment and the fulfillment to the entrepreneurs. The other thing I've found is that, people who are driven by wanting to get to some place very quickly, whether they want to do an IPO or whether they want to get rich quickly or whatever, are always, sometimes people get lucky and maybe hit it, and maybe you call them successful, but still not enlightened, right? To be enlightened, people have to really enjoy doing what they're doing and also learn to deal with the situations in a very nice way. And that to me is sort of the quality of a good karma yogi who clearly differentiates in his mind what's under his control from things that are not under his control. The things that are not under his control, they develop a capability to not worry about them too much. That to me is a little bit of surrender, right? That is, you don't fight every issue. You fight issues where you can actually make a difference. And then also, enlightened entrepreneurs tend to sort of live their own life. They don't do it just because they want to keep up with the Joneses. When people try to sort of imitate somebody else and try to do something which is not really their true passion, it doesn't really go much. The other thing is these are the people who really enjoy doing what they do is the journey itself, not the end. The best example I can think of are let's say there's two soccer players, young soccer players. There's one soccer player who just wants to win. And they both sort of are playing two different games. They get close to the goal and they're just about to score and the opponent trips. When the opponent trips them, it turns out to be an unfair call. The world is unfair. And the referee made a mistake. You could have one athlete who gets so mad, so upset with the whole situation, that he just chooses to quit the game. He'll never play the game again. The other player says, that's okay, I just love playing the game, and he just gets up and brushes up and starts playing the game again. So people who really love playing the game play it for the sake of the game itself. It's a little bit like the little kids, the soccer kids. A lot of you young parents probably have kids who are 5 years old. At least when our 5-year-olds started playing, the kid just enjoyed playing soccer. They didn't really care which side they scored the goal on. It was only the parents that were all upset that the goal went to the other team, right? So I think it's that childlike excitement of actually living the life and playing the game, which I see as another characteristic of an enlightened entrepreneur. And then when you go through these things, we heard this morning about an agitated mind. You find that the entrepreneurs and karma yogis who are enlightened don't get agitated that easily or agitate others. They have an ability to sort of moderate the ups and downs, because it doesn't matter every time you take on. I'm sure Satya, when she was putting this conference together, which was just a dream, I'm sure she went through lots of ups and downs. But as a good entrepreneur, she was able to moderate it, right? I mean, you moderate those things as opposed to amplify those ups and downs and create a crisis every day. And then, there's a lot of dilemmas. Whenever you choose to do something, there is always hurdles, and every hurdle causes a dilemma. Should you be polite, or should you be rough? Should you be a tough negotiator, or should you be a nice guy? And so balancing those opposites and doing the right thing for the right reason, being polite does not mean that you cannot be firm. And so a lot of the opposites, actually, you have to use the right opposite at the right time. And balancing the two sides of that equation is also a very important thing. So if you actually see these karma yogis, if you see the good entrepreneurs, people who actually like doing things, how do you know who is enlightened? Number one, they tend to be, just the agitated mind, this is a prajna, they don't agitate easily. The other thing is they tend to have small egos, because I think they realize that how big the universe is. There's a big universe, millions of stars, and there's one little planet, or that one little planet, there's one little human being. And so you realize what your role is in the big scheme of things. And so it doesn't matter how much you achieve, it's really not that significant. And keeping that perspective is what helped those people, I think, deal with the situations. The other thing that I've always seen about these people is that they tend to be naive, and they tend to be optimistic. They're naive in the sense they always believe that they can take on any challenge that they see in the world and do something about it. They can solve it. And everybody around them says, you stupid, you can't do that. I mean, that's undoable. But that doesn't seem to drive them. What seems to drive them is the fact that they actually truly believe they can do something about it, and they just keep doing it. And as they start doing it, they'll come across a lot of hurdles. And every time they come across a hurdle, they somehow are optimistic. They always believe that hurdle is going to go away. And whether it's rational or irrational, having that optimism I find to be a very exciting proposition. Because whether it's true or not, believing that tomorrow is going to be better than today And leading your whole life that way is not a bad deal. And so, people, good enlightened karma yogis, always, doesn't matter how old they get, they always tend to be naive and believe that problems in this world can be solved, and they're very optimistic that they'll get it done. So the biggest blessing of doing any of this stuff and learning all the profound words that we heard this morning about Gita is that you can actually lead a life where you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day. To me, if somebody can do that every day, if somebody has a life where they can get up in the morning and they're excited about the day each and every day, there's nothing more. There's nothing more you can ask for. I mean, that's the ultimate life that anyone can lead. And so what I find is that all the lessons that we heard in the morning are essentially tools to sort of lead a life like that. I know all of you in this room are self-selected karma yogis, and you all want to be enlightened. And I really thank Satya for pulling all of us together so that we can learn from each other. And I want to wish you all the best. Thank you.
Hi folks, Deshpande has been one of the eminent speakers at International Gita Conference right here in Sunnyvale, and he has flown all the way from Boston to attend this conference. Welcome to INDTV USA, and tell us a little about your experience with this conference so far.
Well, I think it's so nice to see so many eminent people, scholars on Gita who have actually done it. And I was also very impressed that within the conference they're able to mix people who are actually practicing it. I was very impressed with these young kids who are, 16 years old, who actually can articulate what Gita is all about. And so it's a very nice mixture of how the depth of the Gita, the people who live it, and the people who are practicing it, both in India and US. So it's very nice to see how the world is sort of all coming together, sharing the best practices and so on. So that's very impressive.
So as an entrepreneur, how well you have been able to apply the philosophies and tenets hidden in Gita to your success?
Well, I think more and more, I see how it's relevant. Gita isn't like one magic pill that you take and everything is okay. What I find interesting about Gita is that as you live your life, you find out a lot of things for yourself. And then that Gita starts making even more sense. So the insights that people had in Gita are just amazing, because it takes a whole life to sort of really understand what they're talking about. But what they're talking about is very profound. I mean, I think what happens is if you can actually apply some of those principles as an entrepreneur, you can take even bigger and bigger and bigger challenges. And the roller coaster ride isn't as scary or as hard to deal with, because you detach yourself from a lot of those things, and you commit yourself more to the mission of what it is that you're trying to do. And so some of those underpinnings are very profound in Gita.
Absolutely, I'm totally on board with this two cents that detached attachment is one of the key principles, key preachings of Gita. Tell us a little more about Deshpande Foundation that you have with your wife Jayashree, and how this has been helping the society.
Well, in some ways, the foundation, we started off supporting more the traditional entrepreneurship at the high-end hardware, software, life sciences and so on. So we have a center at MIT and all that stuff. But more recently, in US, in India and in Canada, we've been working more and more with impoverished communities. And what I find is that what those communities lack is people who want to be karma yogis, who want to stand up and say, I'll take on the challenge. I mean, you give a challenge to somebody in Silicon Valley, they look at it as an opportunity and they jump on it. In impoverished communities, people don't have that culture. As a result, they feel very helpless and victimized, and they sit around and just complain about things. And one of the big things that the foundation is really trying to champion is a way to get people to solve their own problems and take charge. And anytime somebody looks up at a challenge and finds a way to solve it, that's the aha moment. That's the empowering moment where I think a person gets transformed from being a complainer to being a problem solver. And I definitely believe that in any impoverished community, if you have enough people who are willing to stand up and solve the problems, that community will not be impoverished anymore.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking with INDTV USA, for sharing some words of wisdom, your great thought, and for helping out the community. Truly appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुः मा ते सङ्गोत्स्वकर्मणि
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare